There are only a few words that I sing in my mind before writing or even saying them. Encyclopedia. Encyclopedia is one of them, and with many thanks to Jiminy Cricket. Another word, which you will immediately recognize, however, has constantly been on my mind and repeating itself over and over again. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. I'm not even going to try and sing that one here in public. I can hear the brilliant voice of the late Aretha Franklin captivating the world with her enthralling and mesmerizing performances. When she died, her and Otis Redding's song Respect was on everyone's lips and broadcast the world over. It's a driving, memorable, and incredibly catchy song, and it is breaking my heart that in recent times, and I fear far into the future, respect has been conspicuously absent. Respect. In Hebrew, kavod, it's such a strong Jewish value that our tradition even extends kavod to inanimate objects. For example, traditionally, when we cover the challah on the Shabbat table, while we say the blessing over the wine, literally, so that the challah's feelings are not hurt by having the wine be blessed first. It's a true story. If we take such symbolic care over a loaf of bread, how much more so should we be concerned about our relationships with other human beings? Respect is a crucial part of almost everything that Judaism teaches, from how we approach God to how we should act with parents, family members, and members of our communities. Torah teaches us, "Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha," you should love your neighbor as you love yourself. We begin with self-respect and self-love in order to respect and love others. Rabbi Hillel says in the Talmud, "That which is hateful to you, do not do to others." But every evening, I thought it was just most evenings, but it is not. Every evening at some point we witness that which is hateful being done and said. Opposing sides on television are shouting each other down, drowning out each other's words. Commentators refuse to allow each other to finish a thought, and even, quote, when everyone is allegedly on the same side, debates become shouting matches, and otherwise decent people try to score points by maligning each other. This behavior is beyond going after ratings, and if it's intended for ratings, who have we become to think that these are healthy and worthy debates? What has happened to the respect, the kavod that should weave throughout our lives? Even the Jewish people show disrespect for one another. Just for the record, there is no place in the world that I would rather be than Israel, and in particular, Jerusalem. Yet one night, a few years ago at a cantorial conference in Jerusalem, walking down the streets of my golden city, alone, singing quietly and happily to myself, and modestly dressed, I was hit by a rock and called many names, none worthy of repeating in shul, by someone who was ultra-Orthodox Jew. Fully understanding the tradition about the laws of kol isha, about women not singing in public, which admittedly is hard for a female cantor to take, I felt myself losing patience and became resentful. The rock didn't help. And in reverse, my rabbinic school classes, students, future rabbis condemned, criticized, and mocked the way traditional Jews follow the law that in their opinion is unenlightened and entirely outdated. I must admit that I, who had a very traditional upbringing, sometimes found myself not only forgetting where I came from, but castigating the Orthodox for their zeal for the law, and I am embarrassed at myself. There are many differences, too, among liberal Jews, but instead of discussing why we each believe and feel and behave the way we do, we judge each other. Sadly, parts of my own family, my friends, and some congregants alike, in their passion for their own religious and cultural views, can't bring themselves to speak to one another and refuse to listen when they perceive others to be on the opposite or the wrong side. Healthy disagreement by well-meaning people is stifled, causing many people to feel unwelcome on the outside. I find myself afraid to share my own personal views regarding Israel or political preference here at home. We are all being silenced, and we are silencing ourselves, afraid to have healthy disagreements and important conversations. This is not the Jewish way. The Talmud records arguments spanning generations, giving voice to both or all viewpoints. The academies of Hillel and Shammai disagreed on virtually everything, but they talked to each other and agreed to disagree. Perhaps we need to teach more Talmud and show the generations of arguments among the rabbis. Argument and struggle, that is how we learn. I'd like to propose that we adopt for ourselves a term often used in psychology. You all know this term, compassionate listening. It's a non-judgmental invitation to others to be themselves, to speak for themselves without worrying about disapproval. It's an extraordinary gift to offer another person, and it can enrich our lives as well. Compassionate listening requires patience, openness, and emotional strength. Moreover, it requires a true desire to understand the other. This requires commitment and practice. One example of this commitment practiced constantly is a group called Seeds of Peace. Seeds of Peace identifies young potential leaders in areas beset by conflict and invites them to a transformational camp session in Maine. There, the Seeds of Peace website explains, the dialogue program shifts attitudes and perceptions and builds respect and empathy. In the words of Adham, a Palestinian seed, Seeds of Peace gave me hope that one day we'll be able to live in peace, a just peace based on the elements of respect, dignity, and basic human rights and values for every Israeli and Palestinian. And another example, the Irish, who are in this sense my heroes. After so many years of war, suffering, and conflict, they found a way forward to reconciliation, pursued peace, and rebuilt a society and a nation. And there are so many more examples. It takes much longer to rebuild a society than to tear it down. Within our larger society and our smaller communities, we must do all that we can to keep from tearing ourselves to shreds. As Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav taught, if you believe that it is possible to break, believe that it is possible to repair. When we take on this challenge to listen compassionately to each other, we can expand our consciousness and empathy and enlarge our capacity and desire for inclusion, not out of pity or benevolence, but because we understand better and desire the wholeness that we can only come about through acceptance and inclusion. Our very mission statement says that Beth Israel is an inclusive Reform congregation that offers a warm welcome and a nurturing home to all who seek meaningful and enduring connection to Judaism. Everyone, no matter what your religious observances, your beliefs, your political views, your race, gender, or sexual orientation, you are an integral part of us, and we are not your judges. I pledge to you that when we discuss weighty issues concerning Israel, immigration, security in our synagogue, and so much more this year, we will examine all sides and we will work to bring in people to teach from all opposing views. As Jews, we look to imitate God as the ultimate compassionate listener. Our Torah service today described God as God of mercy, God gracious and compassionate, endlessly patient and abounding in kindness and faithfulness, assuring love for 1,000 generations, forgiving and granting pardon. With respect for one another and a willingness to engage in compassionate listening, there is no subject too difficult to take on. When we speak to one another in our hearts, informed by our deepest values, we can find support and comfort in the words of the Talmud. Elu ve'elu, divrei Elohim chaim. These and these are the words of the living God. Ken yehi ratzon, may this be God's will, and like God's, our will.